everybody, and welcome back to Night Brothers Commentary once again. Today, we are going to be continuing the new U.S. Constitution series, with today's episode being the heads of COTUS, as well as the possible list of congressional committees. So, without further ado, let's get started. Essentially, the requirements for the congressional leaders are basically to be A, at least 35 years of age, B, be a citizen of the United States for at least 9 years, C, be an inhabitant of the state they represent, and essentially both the majority and the minority leaders will be elected by their respective party members in COTUS. Now, I'm going to be doing something a little bit different with the president pro tempore. Now, essentially, this position, at least in my system, is going to be given to basically the oldest member in both chambers, regardless of how long they have served. And essentially, they will be. They don't really have any true political power unless both the majority leaders and the parties and the minority leader, who is of the same party as the majority leader, are absent. So essentially, they're kind of like third in line for basically the leadership role, if you will. Now, the powers of the congressional majority leaders, which I'm calling the House Majority Leader and the Senate Majority Leader, the Speaker of the House position is basically just being renamed to House Majority Leader. And I'll get into this a little bit later with regards to how the executive branch is going to work, but essentially the Vice President is not necessarily going to be a thing either. So basically the House and Senate Majority Leaders are basically going to be are essentially the leaders of Congress. But their powers are basically going to be presiding over the daily sessions of the House or Senate, vote on issues when their chamber is equally divided, make recess appointments in their respective chamber when necessary, organize the federal budget with the other majority leader, approve executive orders and agreements made by the President with the Chancellor and the other congressional majority leader, and the same thing goes for the Chancellor along with the President. Basically, advise and approve the President's appointments to call the COTUS into a special session with the Chancellor and other congressional majority leader. Appoint members to the Constitutional Council alongside the Chancellor and the President and the other congressional majority leader. So with the approval of the Senate. And then probably the biggest one here is essentially they will replace either the President or the Chancellor. So basically, if you're the Senate Majority Leader, you're replacing the President. Or if you're the House Majority Leader, you're replacing the Chancellor. So essentially, they will replace either of those upon their death, resignation, or incapacitation and stay in office until they are able to resume their duties or the next election arrives. Unless either officer has appointed a vice president or deputy chancellor to replace them. I'll get into more detail once we kind of get to that point in the series, but essentially that is basically the powers of the congressional majority leaders. Now, the powers of the congressional minority leaders are essentially going to be the following. So basically, they will be creating the rules regarding ethics in their respective chamber in the ethics committee, along with the other congressional minority leaders as a collective group. So basically, the ethics committee is basically going to be consisting of at least one member. It will consist of at least one member per party, and each party will get their own minority leader, and they will form this committee and basically do what the ethics committee kind of does now, essentially. They will also act as the chief spokesman for their respective parties, so basically like coordinating and managing party agenda, or even helping to advise the congressional majority leaders if they are the party that basically holds the seat. They also basically get to make recess appointments as well, but only if the seat is basically within, if the seat is basically within their appointed party, if you will. So the House and Senate majority leaders will only have that power for seats that once belonged to them, and the same goes for all of the parties and their minority leaders. And that's basically it when it comes to the powers of both the congressional majority leaders and minority leaders. There really isn't much else that really needs to be explained about them, or at least I don't think there is. Now, with regards to the committees, I'm not going to go over every single one, but essentially both the House and the Senate will essentially have the same committees. So basically there's going to be a committee on access to information and privacy, there's going to be one on financial services, ethics, Senate House Rules and Administration, or human rights, Indian and Aboriginal affairs, the judiciary, which is mostly just going to be the Senate, small businesses, transportation and infrastructure, etc. Those are all just things. That's just a basic kind of list, if you will. So overall, that basically concludes the congressional or legislative section on this series. So the next episode will basically kind of be going over the summary of the executive branch and just kind of essentially just go from there. And so I hope you enjoyed this series. I really do hope you are enjoying this series so far. And please leave a like, subscribe, leave a comment down below. It really does kind of help the channel out. So until then, Knight Brothers Commentary, signing out.